Hi, welcome back. I'm glad to see you again. Today, I'm reading from a book called Star Wars and Philosophy. These are two of my favorite subjects. This book is a collection of essays about philosophy explained through the lens of Star Wars. And these essays were edited by Kevin S. Decker and Jason T. Abreu. I'm going to read from the first chapter, which is by Jason T. Abreu, and it's called You Cannot Escape Your Destiny. Or can you? Freedom and predestination in the Skywalker family. In The Phantom Menace, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn brings a 9-year-old boy, recently released from slavery and separated from his mother, before the Jedi Council to ask that he be trained in the ways of the Force. When the Council refuses to permit the boy's training, Qui-Gon declares, "He is the chosen one. You must see that." To which Master Yoda replies, "Clouded this boy's future is." The boy is, of course, Anakin Skywalker, the future Darth Vader, and his being the chosen one is based on a Jedi prophecy that refers to Anakin bringing balance to the Force. Approximately 35 years Star Wars time after this exchange, Anakin's son Luke has nearly completed his training to become a Jedi Knight. After the deaths of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, Luke will be the last of the Jedi and the last hope for the galaxy to be saved from the tyrannical power of the dark side of the Force, exercised by Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. Yoda tells Luke, however, that he will be a Jedi only if he faces Darth Vader in battle a second time, the first battle having ended badly for Luke and his extremities. Luke balks at the idea of killing his own father, but the apparition of Obi-Wan responds, "You cannot escape your destiny. You must face Darth Vader again." These scenes raise particularly interesting philosophical questions concerning freedom and moral responsibility. What does it mean for Anakin to be the chosen one? Is it possible for him to fail to fulfill the prophecy? Is Anakin predestined to fall to the dark side and become Darth Vader? Must Luke unavoidably shoulder the burden of saving the galaxy? Or does Anakin choose to ally himself with the Emperor? Could Luke have chosen to remain on Tatooine and live out his life tending his uncle's moisture farm instead of going with Obi-Wan? Anakin Skywalker's destiny seems to have been set for him since before he was even born. Who was his father? Asks Qui-Gon after sensing Anakin's incredible Force potential. His mother, Shmi, replies, "There was no father. I gave birth to him. I raised him. I can't explain how it happened. The realization then dawns on Qui-Gon that Anakin may be the chosen one of Jedi prophecy. Qui-Gon is a true believer in Anakin's destiny from that moment on, and with his dying breath insists that Obi-Wan train Anakin to become a Jedi Knight. Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin, however, is just that, a belief, and Master Yoda points out the uncertainty of Anakin's future. For us, the future is also clouded. Typically, despite some people's belief in crystal balls or tarot cards, we don't have visionary insights into what's to come. Even gifted Jedi don't have certainty about future events. When Luke has a vision of Han and Leia suffering on Bespin, he asks Yoda, will they die? If any Jedi is able to see clearly into the future, it should be the oldest, wisest, greenest, and most powerful of all of them. But even Yoda can only reply, difficult to see. Always in motion is the future. Perhaps it's this lack of certainty about our knowledge of the future that allows us to freely choose what actions we'll take to determine the future for ourselves, as Luke courageously but perhaps also foolishly chooses to end his training early and leave Dagobah to help his friends. Of course, we typically don't equate ignorance with freedom. Suffering under the delusion that you're free because you don't know your own future isn't nearly as good as having an indeterminate future, a future not already set in stone. But at least one individual in the Star Wars galaxy seems to have had a pretty clear idea of what lay ahead in the future. Whoever wrote the Jedi prophecy that Anakin fulfilled when he, as Vader, killed Emperor Palpatine in Return of the Jedi. This visionary, at least in this case, had a God's eye view of the future, and it's this perspective that raises questions regarding Anakin's freedom as well as our own. In our galaxy, many religious believers, particularly those in the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, conceive of God as omniscient and understand God's infinite knowledge to include infallible knowledge of the future. If God knows from all eternity that I would be writing this chapter right now, it might seem that there's no way it could be false that I'm now writing this chapter. When I was sitting in my lazy boy chair about 30 minutes ago, wondering whether I should work on my chapter or watch Attack of the Clones on DVD with my 5.1 surround system on full blast because my wife is out with her girlfriends tonight, God already knew what I was going to choose, and since God can't be wrong, it seems I couldn't have chosen to watch my DVD instead of working on my chapter. Was I free in my choice to work on my chapter? To approach this question, we have to understand a little about God's nature. Both St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, two very influential Christian philosophers of the Middle Ages, reasoned that there isn't much we can definitively say about God's nature, since it is far beyond our comprehension. Nevertheless, there are certain things they're sure that God is not. For example, both hold that God is not in time. Aquinas relies on Aristotle, who argued that time is the measure of motion. There can be no time if there's no motion, and there can be no motion if there is no universe with things in it that are in motion, just as the force requires living things in order to exist. God, though, must exist outside the universe, because God created the universe. This also means that God could exist even if no universe existed, since time requires the existence of a universe that contains things in motion, and God could exist without such a universe existing. God must exist outside of time. God is eternal. What would eternal existence, living outside of time, be like? We experience the passage of time in a linear fashion. One moment passes to the next, which passes to the next, and so on. When Han Solo makes the Kessel Run in less than 5 parsecs, a measure of distance, not time, he must travel the first parsec before he can travel the second, before he can travel the third, and so on. This, of course, requires that he travel for one period of time before he can travel for a second period of time, before he can travel for a third. You get the idea. This is the nature of time from our perspective. From the eternal perspective, though, every moment in time occurs at once. Imagine seeing every frame of all 6 Star Wars films at the same instant, not one after another, like scenes on the page of a comic book. You would see Han shooting Greedo and being frozen in carbonite at the same time. If someone could see from this eternal perspective, he would know the future, because from this perspective, the past, present, and future are all equally present to the observer. For us linear observers, the future doesn't exist. Neither does the past, which we simply recollect. We can perceive only the present. Aquinas writes, God knows future events still undetermined. Now, God knows such events not only in their causes, but also as actual happenings. Though they happen one after another, God's knowledge of them happening is not itself successive like ours, but instantaneously whole. I'm going to stop there. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.